we gonna dump these disgusting books? The ocean?
Certainly not. It's been illegal to dump hazardous waste in the ocean for over a year now.
I may have spoken too soon criticizing Hulu's Futurama revival for its lack of episodes about Fry. This is something I mentioned when covering the previous episode Quiz Game, and here we are with another somewhat Fry-centric story. This time revolving around a case of stolen identity. The Temp is one of my favourite episodes from the show's revival. It's an inventive and deceptive story with several unexpected callbacks to a certain Snoo Snoo episode. From the very beginning, we're intrigued about the absence of our beloved delivery boy Philip J. Fry. Who is this random guy taking his place, and why does the Planet Express crew believe that he is Fry? On this rare occasion, we have a pre-credit scene that sets up the episode with the crew already mid-mission. Fry is introduced as the hook of this story, voiced by the incredibly talented Michael Bolton. I mean, David Herman.
Yeah, well, at least your name isn't Michael Bolton.
Yeah, jokes aside, Herman is honestly one of my favourite voiceover talents on the show, and so on a mission to Omicron Persei 8, the crew are tasked with catering and delivering a cake for Lur and Under's 63rd wedding anniversary. And continuing to act as though everything is normal, the crew serve the Omicronians regardless of how brutal this job may be.
I love my job.
Speaking of, the temporary worker, what's his name again?
Frank.
Yeah, him. Despite working a job that's supposed to be unfulfilling, he is oddly excited about the role. He declares several times that he loves his job as a delivery boy. He's too enthusiastic, always asking for things to do. Whether it's cleaning tables or Dr. Zoidberg, he genuinely believes he has the best job in the galaxy. But of course, we all know there's something not quite right about all of this. Where is Fry, and how did the Temp manage to steal both his job and his identity in such a short amount of time? In an unlikely direction, this episode is a spiritual continuation to one of the classic Futurama episodes from the 3rd season. Amazon Women in the Mood is a memorable part of the show's legacy for its storytelling, bringing Amy and Kif closer together, but it's arguably more well known for the giant Amazonian women and the related crushed pelvises. And told in a series of flashbacks, we see the after effects of the Snoo Snoo situation for Fry, and treated for his injuries, he is convinced to take some time off work. And one of my favourite gags is that he's apparently going on vacation back to planet Amazonia, where he'd just been brutally injured? Christ, there's just no helping this man's level of stupidity.
Enjoy Amazonia!
In Fry's absence, Hermes and the Professor agree that they need to hire a temporary replacement in order to keep deliveries running smoothly for Planet Express, and visiting a new location for the show, the horrible gelatinous blob is now running a temp agency, and given that these events are meant to take place in the show's 3rd season, hopefully this isn't the same blob that they end up fighting in the Root of All Evil episode. And keeping the callbacks consistent, there's a fun reference to the original Planet Express commercial from the 2nd ever episode of the show, referring to the corpse inside the blob as Evans. This is the same name of the guy who's eaten in the commercial.
Good work, Evans. You've got a future around here.
Thank you, sir.
After looking through temporary workers bagged and hanging like clothes in a dry cleaners, the blob assigns Frank to work at Planet Express.
Lucky me. Let's just get it over with.
At first he's completely unenthused, with no care for the actual work itself. He just wants to get it over with and get paid, but exploring his life as a temp, he describes the worst parts of being a temporary worker, mainly how nobody can remember who he is, and that his contributions are essentially meaningless. And the dialogue during these moments really cracked me up, especially when Frank describes how he doesn't have any time for anything else other than temping.
I don't have time for that. Temping is a full-time job.
Over the next 2 weeks temping at Planet Express, Frank gets way too comfortable. And I also like how there's an early spark of jealousy between him and Fry, a man that he has never even met before. But like all good things, his time with the beloved delivery company comes to an end, and joining the crew for one last mission, they are called to complete a dump job, dumping millions of destroyed books from a water break disaster. And one forced TikTok joke later, the crew does complete the mission, leaving Frank behind in this wasteland. With Fry's return, the crew forgets about the Temp, resuming their daily activities, and with all the character exposition about Frank out of the way, we return to the present, where we see the setup from before the crew head off to Omicron Persei 8. And helping Bender with frosting the wedding cake, Fry is clearly burnt out, bringing into question when he last took a vacation, and then all the stuff about the Temp conveniently comes flooding back.
I'm sure he's fine. We'll just swing by on the way to the wedding and pick up his corpse.
To their astonishment, over 20 years after being stranded, Frank is still alive. And living off various foods that somehow incorporate books, he's grateful to have been remembered, or at first he is. Given the opportunity to clean up, he then steals Fry's clothes and hypnotizes the crew into leaving Fry behind this time. And it's a very simplistic idea for the third act, confirming how Frank was able to convince the entire crew that he is Fry now. But of course, this doesn't last very long, and the cracks begin to show where he fails to retain the stolen identity. Returning to the junk planet once again, it's apparently only been 6 weeks, but Fry is found with a fully fledged beard, and he argues with the crew that he is who he says he is, and I love how he does this with photos of special occasions he has shared with everyone that he keeps inside his wallet. And yes, it's just a visual gag, but it does show how Fry's found family really does mean everything to him. And foiled at last, Frank comes clean about how he's been using an ancient means of hypnotism that he learned from a book he was able to salvage. But now this plan has failed, he holds the crew at gunpoint and hijacks the Planet Express ship to escape, to no avail. Despite his innocence and how he really didn't do anything wrong, it's hilarious to see him with a more villainous approach, and with nothing left to lose, he vows to kill everybody where the crew devise a plan of their own. Bender comes up with a ludicrously complicated idea, but when the crew finally makes it to the ship undetected, they just decide to leave Frank behind once again. Overall, I was very impressed by the pacing and how the storytelling potential paid off as nothing more than a quirky sci-fi story. There was no need to deliberately commentate on current world events or fads that are hanging on by a loose thread, and David Herman really did steal the show despite his character being deliberately non-memorable, therefore not adding anything of value. Of course, I say that in jest, because I feel it would honestly be hilarious if Frank came back as a recurring antagonist. I'm getting some real Frank Grimes vibes from this character, somebody who'd struggle to make a point, only to be defeated by their own ineptitude. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode breakdown and review of The Temp. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to leave me a like down below, it's always appreciated. Let me know in the comments how you felt about this episode, what are your thoughts on the way this season is shaping up so far, and for more videos, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel at DVD Review Studios.
Are you threatening me?